And we have a lot to cover. So get ready. I think what I'm going to do here is just kind of rapid fire what's happened. We have so much to cover this week and all before the market closure tomorrow for Thanksgiving holiday. I'm Brandon Steele, financial advisor with Mainsail Financial Group here in Bellevue. And our goal every Thursday is to bring to you the market news, the data, the trends that we're watching, and hopefully weed out a bit of the noise along the way. And obviously, I'm also coming to you this week on not a Thursday. Today is Wednesday, so wanted to share an update. Prior to the holiday weekend, we figured that this might be a little bit easier or better time for some of you to actually consume some market updates. And so wanted to get this out a little bit early here this week. And we have a lot to cover. So get ready. I think what I'm going to do here is just kind of rapid fire what's happened. We will also skip the question of the week because there is so much, and obviously with the holiday coming up anyway. But before we kind of move on and enjoy the holiday, there is certainly a lot to cover as far as market updates. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the consumer. So into last week and the start of this week, we had consumer sentiment down. We had consumer confidence up. So very conflicting, obviously, from that perspective. But we also had a lot of home sales data as well. So new home sales was also down and down pretty big as well. That was definitely something to kind of We have so much to cover here this week, and all before the market close for the holiday tomorrow for Thanksgiving. I'm Brandon Steele, financial advisor with Mainsail Financial Group here in Bellevue, and our goal every Thursday is to bring to you the market news, the data, the trends that we're watching, and hopefully weed out a bit of the noise along the way. Also, for what it's worth, before we dive in, I realize that this also is not a Thursday. We're coming to you on a Wednesday. We figured that given the holiday tomorrow, this might be a little bit easier time for a lot of you to kind of catch up on some market data. So we want to get this out a little bit early. And again, we have a ton to cover before we kind of go fill up on Thanksgiving food. So we will be skipping the question of the week, given how much we have as well as the holiday, but we'll dive right in because certainly have a lot of data to touch on here this week. I'm going to break this into maybe three different sections. I'm going to talk a little bit about the consumer, let's say broad economy, and then let's call it inflation and Fed. So that's kind of how we'll break up all of this data here this week. Starting with the consumer, which some of this data goes back to late last week, some early this week. We had consumer sentiment and consumer confidence come out. Of course, consumer sentiment was down, consumer confidence was up. So a little bit of conflicting data there, certainly to kind of grapple with here heading into the holiday weekend. But we also had new home sales come out. So new home sales were down big and really pretty significant drop here, especially given the regular trend that we've been seeing in the housing market. It's been a continuous kind of challenge for the past over a year or so, and the data point here recently certainly signals that again. We also had initial jobless claims come out, so this is kind of a more quick measure of where the labor market might stand. Jobless claims down again to 213,000. However, with all that, we did see spending up 0.4%, and personal income was up 0.6%, so a huge jump, and honestly quite a bit more than many had expected. So in terms of the consumer, I guess mixed signals is the best way to put this. I mean, we've got sentiment down, confidence up, home sales down, jobless claims not so great, but spending and income remain strong. So as per usual, over the last year or so, the consumer has shown some cracks, but remains resilient. And so a little bit of a challenge to kind of read through the lines there on where the consumer stands. But hopefully that gives, maybe a glimpse. On the broader economy side of it, this might be the quicker portion of our conversation today, but we did get the first revision for GDP. So GDP is showing at 2.8% for the quarter. Obviously this can change from revision to revision, not typically very significantly, but either way, I just wanted to kind of update you on where we stand at the moment. And then we fast forward into today, as well as I guess Tuesday too. But today we had some inflation numbers come out. So we had PCE index and PCE core come out here today. The PCE index was up 0.2%, and the PCE core was up 0.3%. Not really a big shift in expectations, I guess. If we go back to some of the CPI data, kind of aligns with some of what we saw there too, where the core, is remaining pretty sticky. Keep in mind the headline includes food and energy. So obviously, if energy prices are down, it impacts that quite a bit. But certainly, I guess the theme would be that the core especially remains to be a little stickier than many had expected. It's still below 3% right now, on a year-over-year basis, but certainly not anywhere near that 2% target that we keep hearing about from the Fed. Speaking of the Fed, this is why I wanted to highlight inflation, was we also had Fed minutes come out yesterday on Tuesday. And the Fed minutes basically showed that that the path around cuts looks to be pretty cautious. There was a few members considering really deliberate paces, I think the word that was used, into 2025. I don't know that there was a whole lot to think too hard on in the Fed minutes, but the general theme was that it seems that the consensus, or at least a majority, are really being cautious in how they view rate cuts into next year. In fact, I just saw a minute ago some people talking about, whether or not rate cuts even happen in this next meeting. I still do believe it's more likely than not that we see another 25 basis rate cut in that December meeting, but it's being thrown around more and more that it's possible the Fed may even pause at the moment. So I would say the minutes maybe just elaborate on that a little bit more. Although again, I still do believe that we'll likely see one more before the year end, and then they might reassess into 2025. So hopefully that was helpful. A lot of consumer data, a lot of Fed minutes and inflation data, and then obviously the GDP number were the main things in focus here this week. Do keep in mind that the markets are closed tomorrow for Thanksgiving. And after all of this data overload today, next week we will kick off jobs week. So we'll be sure to kind of catch up a little bit more on the labor market next Thursday at 3. In the meantime, have a great Thanksgiving. If you're taking the whole weekend, enjoy the long weekend, and we'll see you next Thursday.